Good day everyone, I'm Mrs. Juan, your math facilitator. For today, I'm gonna discuss about direct variation and inverse variation. So sit down, relax, and let's learn together.
This is all about inverse variation. Let's consider this situation. If a pizza with 12 slices is to be divided equally among 6 children, how many slices of pizza does each one receive? That's right. Each one receives 2 slices of pizza. How about if it is to be divided equally among 4 children? How many slices of pizza does each one receive? Alright, each one receives 3 slices of pizza. Let's make a table of values for the number of children, which is x, and the number of slices, which is y. So, based from the given example, if there are 6 children who will be sharing with the number of slices of pizza, each one has 2 slices of pizza. If there are 4 children, each one has 3 slices of pizza. If there are 3 children, then each one will have 4 slices of pizza. And if there are 2 children, then each one will have 6 slices of pizza. Now, as you have noticed that as the number of children decreases, the number of slices increases. And if we get to multiply x and y, we get 6 times 2, that is 12. 4 times 3 is 12. 3 times 4 is 12. And 2 times 6 is 12. We have a constant value which is 12. This particular example or situation illustrates an inverse variation. So what is an inverse variation? The quantity y varies inversely as the value of x if there exists a non-zero constant k such that y is equal to k over x, or equivalently k is equal to xy. By the multiplication property of equality, we get k is equal to xy. The constant k is called the constant of variation. So as for the example, the constant k is 12. This is the constant of variation, which is 12. Now, let's present this example in terms of graph. So let's say the number of slices be y and the number of children be x. If x is 6, then the value of y is 2. So we have here 6 for x and 2 for y's. Next, if x is 4, then y is 3. So 4 and 3 here. Next, if x is 3, then y is 4. So this is 3, 4, and when x is 2, then y is 6. So we have here 2 and 6. If we connect the points, then we get the graph of this one. So this shows the graph of an inverse variation. Now let's have some more examples. Let's translate each statement into an equation displaying inverse variation. So remember that if y varies inversely as x, then we can write that as y equals k over x. Now, air pressure P varies inversely as its altitude A. What would be the inverse variation equation? Alright, so P is equal to K over A. Next, how about this one? The altitude A of a parallelogram with a constant area varies inversely as its corresponding base. That's correct. So A is equal to K over B. Next, the height h of a cylinder with constant volume is inversely proportional to the square of its radius. Okay, so h is equal to inversely proportional to the square of its radius r. So h is equal to k over r squared. Now let's try to solve some problem. If y varies inversely as x and y equals 24 when x equals 3, find the constant of variation. Now, we have to translate first y varies inversely as x, and that is to be translated as y equals k over x. Y varies inversely as x. Next, we have to substitute the values to the given equation. So when y is 24, so we write that 24 equals k, x is equal to 3. Now to solve for k, we multiply the whole equation by 3. So we get 3 times 24 is 72. And 3 divided by 3, or 3 times k divided by 3 is k. So therefore, k is equal to 72, or the constant of variation is 72. Since we have obtained the value of k, which is 72, and our working equation is y equals k over x, then the equation of variation would be y equals the value of k, which is 72, over x. So this is the equation of variation. Next, find y when x equals 8. Again, our equation of variation is y equals 72 over x. To solve for y, we just substitute the value of x in this equation. So y equals 72 divided by x, that is 8. So y equals 72 divided by 8 is 9. So therefore, the value of y when x equals 8 is 9. Number 2. If m varies inversely as n and m equals 8 when n equals 15, find m when n equals 60. Can you give me the equation of variation? Alright, so m is equal to k over n. Next, we have to solve first for the value of k, or the constant of variation, by substituting the given. So m is 8, so we just plug in 8 here, and then we have k, and n is 15. Or this is the same as k over 15 equals 8. So to solve for k, we multiply the whole equation by 15. So we get K equals 15 times 8 is 120. Now to solve for M, we substitute the value of K here and the value of the value of N. So M equals K over N. We will use again our working equation. M equals K over N, and M equals K is 120 and N is 60. So therefore M is equal to 2. So since the value of N increases, then the value of M decreases. Is this clear? How about N when M equals 10? Again, we use our equation. M equals 120 over N. And we want to solve for N when M is 10. So we have M is 10 equals 120 over N. Now we have to multiply the whole equation by N. So we get 10 times N is 10N equals 120. N divided by N is 1 times 120 is 120. So to solve for N, we divide this by 10. So therefore, N is equal to 120 divided by 10 is 12. So N is equal to 12 when M is equal to 10. Number 3. If A is inversely proportional to the square of B and A equals 4 when B is 8, find A when B is 4. So we have to write a statement or an equation, variation equation for this statement. A is inversely proportional to the square of B. So we write that as A equals inversely proportional, that is K over the square of B. So B squared. And then we have the value of A, which is 4. So we just substitute 4 to A equals K. And then B is 8. We have 8 squared. 4 is equal to K. 8 squared is equal to 64. So to solve for K, we multiply the whole equation by 64. So 64 times 4 is 256 equals K. So the constant of variation is 256. Now we want to find A when B is 4. Again, we just substitute the value of K in this equation. So A equals K is 256 over B is 4, that is 4 squared. So A equals 256 divided by 4 squared is 16. So A equals 256 divided by 16 is what? Alright, so A is equal to 16 when B is equal to 4. I hope that you got this one. Next, number 4. The law of the lever states that to balance a given person seated on a seesaw, the other person must sit a distance d from the fulcrum inversely proportional to his weight, W. Adi and Kimi are trying to balance on a seesaw, and Adi weighs 100 pounds and sits 4 feet from the fulcrum. Kimi weighs 80 pounds. how far from the fulcrum must Kimi sit so they would be balanced on the seesaw. So, let's have to translate this one and make an equation of variation. So, the distance is inversely proportional to the weight. So, we can write that as D equals K over W. Adi and Kimi are trying to balance on a seesaw. Adi weighs 100 pounds. So, let's say the weight of Adi is 100 pounds and sits 4 feet from the fulcrum. So, the distance is 4 feet. So, 4 equals K over 100. So, to solve for K, we multiply this by 100. So, we got 100 times 4 is 400 equals 100 times K divided by 100 is K. So, the constant of variation is K. Now, the question is, how far from the fulcrum must Kimi sit so they would be balanced on the seesaw? So, we are looking for D or distance. So, to solve for that, we have D equals the obtained value of K, which is 400, over the weight of Kimi, which is 80. So, distance or D is equal to 400 divided by 80 is equal to 5. So, the distance is 5 feet. And the last one, the number of hours required to finish a certain job varies inversely as the number of persons on the job. So obviously, if there are more persons to do the job, it would only take less time to finish that job. If 8 persons require 9 hours to finish the job, how long should it take for 24 persons to do the same job? So the number of hours, let's say it is T, is inversely proportional to the number of persons on the job. So let's say K and the number of persons be P. So T is equal to K over P. If 8 persons require 9 hours, so 8 be the number of persons and 9 be the number of hours. So 8 for P and 9 for T. So 9 equals K over P is 8. Now again, to solve for K, we multiply this by 8. So 8 times 9 is 72 equals 8 times K is 8K divided by 8 is 1K, or simply K. So the constant of variation is 72. How long should it take for 24 persons to do the same job? So we are to solve for T. So T is equal to K is 72 over the number of persons, which is 24. So T equals 72 divided by 24 is 3. So therefore, it will take only 3 hours for 24 persons to do the same job. Is this clear? Alright. Now let's have some drills about inverse variation. Which of the following illustrates inverse variation? Alright. Is this an inverse variation? If your answer is yes, then you are correct. Why? Since the value of x increases and the value of y decreases, and when we multiply x and y, we get the same value, which is equal to 24. So 1 times 24 is 24, 2 times 12 is 24, 3 times 8 is 24, 4 times 6 is 24, and 6 times 4 is 24. So we can say that the constant of variation is 24. So therefore, this is an inverse variation. Next, how about this one? If your answer is no, then you are also correct. Although the value of x increases and the value of y decreases. But if we have to get xy, you get 1 times 50 is 50, 2 times 40 is 80, 3 times 30 is 90, 4 times 20 is 80, 5 times 10 is 100. It is not a constant value. So therefore, this is not an inverse variation. Next one. Tell whether the relationship between the quantities involved is indirect or inverse variation. Number 1. The number of workers and the time required to finish an amount of job. Is this direct variation or inverse variation? Alright, the answer is inverse variation. How about this one? The number of workers and the amount of work finished. What do you think is the kind of variation? Is it inverse or is it direct variation? Okay, it's your answer. If your answer is direct, then you are correct. This is a direct variation. Why? Because as the number of workers increases, then the amount of work finished also increases. Next, how about the quality of the goods and the price of these goods? Is this inverse or direct? Okay, the answer is direct variation. Why? As the quality of the goods increases, the price also increases. So this is a direct variation. And last one, the number of family members and the length of time to consume one sack of rice. Is this inverse or direct? Yes, the answer is inverse variation. As the number of family increases, the time to consume one sack of rice decreases. Mas maraming kakain, mas konting time para maubos yung isang sako ng bigas. Next, if x varies inversely as x, if x varies inversely as y and x equals 15 when y equals 6, find x when y equals 18. You have 10 seconds to answer this. Alright, so let's see if your answer is correct. X varies inversely as y. So we write that as x equals k over y. And x equals 15. So 15 equals k, y is 6. So to solve for k, we multiply the equation by 6. So we get 6 times 15 is 90. 6 times k is 6k. Divided by 6 is Okay, so the constant of variation is 90. Next, find x when y equals 18. So x equals k is 90 and y is 18. So therefore, x is equal to 90 divided by 18 is 5. So x is equal to 5 when y is 18. I hope that you learned from this video and thank you for watching.